Welcome back, I'm George, and in this video I'm going to show you every single feature and every single customization option I know for the Galaxy S26 Ultra. This is going to be a very long video. Of course, you will find timestamps so you can skip across the different segments to choose which features and customization options you like. And well, without any further ado, let's begin with the first feature, in this case, one of the best features on this phone, and that, fun fact, is only available on the S26 Ultra. To turn it on, we have to swipe down on the control center, then swipe down once again to see the privacy display option, and then simply turn it on. As you can see, once this option is enabled, we will have a privacy glass by default on the phone without having to install anything physically on the display. And the cool thing about it, of course, is that you can always turn it off and go back to normal, or just a average display. And well, if you want a little extra customization for the privacy display, you can tap and hold, then tap on details, and here you can access the conditions to turn it on. You can choose to enable it in specific apps, ranging from, well, any app you have installed on your phone. You can choose to enable it when you're showcasing a PIN or password on the display, or you can enable it with your notifications. So the rest of the display will be normal, but the pop-up notification will be private, so only you can see it. Now moving on, let's tap here on settings, then swipe down to security and privacy, then swipe down again to more security settings, and then tap here on secure folder. This essentially is going to be a very safe and secure folder that's encrypted and protected by, as you can see, a PIN, password pattern, or multiple of these at the same time. You have to set it up with a password. You have to set it up with a specific fingerprint. So it's really secure. And although it is a little bit overkill for most people, since you can always lock specific apps that have sensitive information, if you have things that are really, really, really private and you don't want anyone to see those things, this is great because it's not going to show up on your phone as a normal app or folder. But if you know your password and you know where to access the folder, which is through the settings, you can have an extra layer of security for your most private information. As you can see, you can store photos, notes, links, files, anything you want, essentially. So you make sure only you can have access to that information. But anyways, that being said, now I'm going to show you how to make this phone feel and be faster. Which I know seems crazy because it's a very powerful and very fast phone, but you can make it even faster. All you have to do is to come to the Samsung store, which is this one right here with the red icon. Then look for an app called Good Luck, this one right here. In my case, I already have it installed on the phone, but you have to download it. It's a couple megabytes and it's official, made by Samsung, so don't worry about it. Let's enter the app. Then once you're on the app, you have to swipe down to find an extension pack called Home Up, and also download that extension pack. As you can see, it's very lightweight. It's going to take a couple seconds. And well, once it's downloaded, we just have to enter that extension. As you can see, it acts as a separate app. Then we have to turn it on, turn on gesture settings, enter the gesture settings, and then enable both home gesture animation tuning and app open animation tuning. As you can see, when we tap on home gesture animation, we will be able to select the speed at which we swipe back home when we are in an app. By default, it's going to be set to classic, but we can make it dynamic so it's faster. As you can see, we can swipe home a lot faster than we did before. And even though this is not recommended on any phone, since it's going to consume more power, this is the latest and greatest Samsung phone, so it can handle a little bit more speed. And well, more in the same vein, if we tap on App Open Animation Tuning, we can tune the speed of the app opening animation. By default, it's set to moderate, but we can make it fast or very, very fast, up to, say, 99%, where you'll see it right now. There's not even an animation because it's so fast you can't even see it. Now, if you want a good balance between speed and cool animation, I would suggest you set it in the verge between fast and very fast, since that's going to give you an animation but that is going to be really fast. It's a very, very fast animation. But anyways, that being said, now I'm going to show you one of the coolest things I found you can do with a Samsung phone. And by the way, this works on any Samsung phone. I'm going to show you how to delete all ads that pop up on your display when you're browsing the web, which is a very big deal. As you can see, on mostly any website, you'll see these annoying pop-ups, ads, and things that show up in the middle of the content. And they are very common. It's like half of the content you see on the display. So yeah, it gets very intrusive. And there is a very simple way to get rid of all ads. If you come to the main settings page and tap on connections, then tap on more connection settings, and then tap on private DNS, you can tap right here on private DNS provider hostname, and then enter a custom DNS name. In this case, you have to type dns.adguard.com. Then tap on save, and you'll see it right now. The ads on that website are completely gone, and this applies to any website now. So as you can see, it's the same site. Now we don't see anything at the bottom, although there's a space reserved for ads. There's also a space here for an advert, but there's nothing on it because, we've disabled any. Look at how big that is. Come on. There's nothing. No ads, nothing. So you can browse the web. Still, you're going to see these blank spaces, but nothing's going to show up. No distractions. You can fully focus on your content. And how did I forget about this? If you swipe all the way to the bottom on your main settings page and tap on About Phone, you can tap on Rename to give your phone any name you want. You can name it Brad Pitt, you can name it Potato, anything. But be careful because this name is going to show up when you share data with other devices, when you connect to other devices. So be careful. You can be funny, but don't try to be too funny because everybody is going to see this name. And that being said, and back here once again on the main settings page, if we swipe down to Device Scare, then tap on Memory. Let's wait a couple seconds. There we go. And then tap on RAM Plus. We will be able to create more RAM using the internal storage. This S26 Ultra, I think, has 16 gigs of RAM, but now it has 24, or up to 36. Now, of course, this has a small price, which is that the space you're using as RAM is not used as internal memory. But if you have 100 gigabytes left over, 200 gigs, which is very common with these high-end phones that have a lot of internal storage, it's not going to be a big deal to use a little bit of that storage to have a better experience, because more RAM means that you can have more apps in the background. It means that the phone is always going to work more fluidly, and that you're going to have a better user experience. But anyway, that being said, and before I continue, now I actually have something for you watching this video. Okay, so a lot of you know me from this channel, whether it is in front of the camera or back there in the top-down shot. But right now, I'm actually building a new channel that's a little bit more ambitious, where I will be needing some extra help. More specifically, I'm looking for a co-host to be in front of the camera with me, and I'm looking for a videographer to shoot the videos. So if by any chance you're interested in being a co-host on a YouTube channel, or you are a videographer, send me an email to this address so we can talk. But anyway, that being said, let's now get back to the S26 Ultra, because there is a lot more things I want to show you. So let's get back right into the settings, to the main settings page, and tap right here on Galaxy AI, because this phone comes with a lot of AI features, and for some weird reason, some of these features come disabled. So you ideally want to tap on each one of these things and make sure that they are turned on so you can take advantage of these things. I'm not really sure which of these are turned on by default, because I already came here and turned everything on. But yeah, make sure that everything is turned on just in case. As you can see, now brief. We can enable audio brief. We can enable expand now brief. That being said, another very cool feature on this phone is that if you tap on sounds and vibrations, then swipe down to sound quality and effects, and then tap on EQ or equalizer, you can actually improve the sound quality on the phone by selecting one of these presets, of course, depending on what you're doing. So if you're listening to a podcast, you can tap on clear. That's going to make the audio sound better for voices. If you're listening to music or watching a movie, you can tap on dynamic. That's going to give you a better sound quality. And if you know what you're doing, you can also tap on custom and create a specific EQ that's better than the default balanced. That is, of course, going to be good for everything, but not the best also for anything. And well, also here on sound quality and effects, I recommend you turn on loudness normalization, which is going to, like the name suggests, normalize the audio of what you're listening to. So you don't have to be tapping on volume up and volume down all the time, depending on the specific moment, which is very common in YouTube videos. The phone is going to do that for you, so the audio levels and audio volume is always the same, no matter what you're listening to. Now, that being said, and moving on, I actually want to show you another very cool feature on this phone. So if you're playing a video, whether it is on YouTube, on Twitch, or on your phone gallery, you can access your control center and you'll see this menu right here called Audio Eraser. So if you tap on it and turn it on, you will be able to erase the background noise in that video, whether it is, city noises if the person's walking across a street, or even background music if it's too loud. You can adjust the intensity of this reduction, so you can max it out so it's only a voice. And if you want an extra punch, you can tap on voice focus, so the phone now goes nuts and it isolates the voice from everything else. This is not necessarily useful for every video, but if you're having trouble listening or distinguishing what the person is saying, you can come here, turn this on, and you'll isolate the voice so you can properly understand what's going on. But anyway, that being said, and coming back to the GTA 6 article, now I want to show you some very cool improvements done with Circle to Search. As many of you know, Circle to Search is a feature that you activate by tapping and holding on the bottom of the phone that helps you do a quick search of anything you circle that's on your display. Now, by default, it is going to show you, a mix of images and articles, depending, of course, on what it is that you've circled. But now you also find these options at the top, like exact matches. So you can see everything that matches exactly with that image. You can see visual matches. Of course, in this case, it's more or less the same. And you have this AI mode that can help you talk to Google Gemini about that image. As you can see, it's going to take some time, but now it tells you that, this is Lucia Caminos, one of the main protagonists in GTA 6. It tells you about the release date. Fingers crossed, it is November 19th. And also with Circle to Search, if you circle anything, once again, that's on your display, and tap right here on the search bar, you'll get custom search results based on what it's seeing. So as you saw, I selected Google Play, an app. So it tells you app download. What does this mean? What does this mean on my phone app? But if I circle Brad Pitt, let's do that right now, and I tap on the search bar, you're going to see net worth, what's his name, movies. That's because he knows it's Brad Pitt, haircut. He always has a good haircut. So it gives you tailored results based on what you've circled, which seems kind of basic, but it's actually pretty cool. It means that the phone actually understands what's on that image or circle before you hit the search bar. But anyway, that being said, let's now swipe down once again from the top right, because for the first time ever on a Samsung phone, you can tap right here on the pencil and customize the control center. So you can make things smaller, you can make things way smaller. In this case, it doesn't let you, but you can make things very, very tiny, like a circle. And you can also move things around. So if you tap and hold, you can move things, anywhere you want. Actually, you can move this up top right here, and you can make a mess. The cool thing about it also is that you can add controls from a very long list. You can keep adding things, and the scroll is going to get bigger, but you can do it. And this was also available in previous years, but you can tap here on Edit and edit the expandable area. And if you ever make a mess or a complete mess trying to edit your control center, it is actually really simple to fix. You can tap here on Panel Settings and then tap on Reset Quick Panel Layout. Let's tap on Reset and boom, that's it. It's back to default, so you can resume editing from scratch or leave it as is, because the default layout is actually not that bad. But anyway, that being said, and moving on with more customization, let's now tap and hold anywhere on the home screen, then tap on Wallpaper and Style, and then tap on the lock screen icon. Because, as you can see right here, we can customize pretty much anything that composes the lock screen. We can tap on the time and date to change the font girth. We can change the font style. We can change the color. We can tap here on style and change the whole layout. This is the one you get by default, but you can set it in a more vertical way. You can even display different types of information and different widgets depending on your taste. And of course, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, and you can move it around. The phone gives you a lot of customization, so you can adjust this to your background and have a more appealing lock screen. Now, if you tap below the time and date right here, you can also edit your widgets, which in this case, as you can see, can be pill-shaped or can be little squares. So you can fit up to 4 squares or 2 pill-shaped widgets. And as you can see, you can choose between a range of apps, which can be first-party Samsung apps or third-party apps you download. So the more apps you download, the more options you will have on this list. And of course, you can also customize your quick controls, which by default are the flashlight and the camera, but you can replace them from this list of quick options right here, or secret, if you swipe down, you can choose any app that's installed on your phone. This is not very intuitive. I'm pretty sure most people are never going to think of swiping and seeing the apps. But yeah, you can select any app you want. So if you're a hardcore gamer, you can access Warzone right from your lock screen. Of course, you can also tap right here at the top left to change the wallpaper, both from the featured Samsung wallpapers. You can create one with AI, so it's customized to your specific taste. Or, as always, you can tap here on Gallery and select one of your photos. Although, everything said, if you select a Samsung-specific wallpaper, you'll probably see this icon right here called Variations. So you can choose different versions of that specific wallpaper. So, well, that's something you will only see with Samsung wallpapers. Oh, and by the way, I completely forgot to show you, if you tap right here on time and date, you'll see that some of these fonts have an animation, which is going to show up when you turn on the phone, and that makes it feel more premium. This was not available last year, but it is available on pretty much any new Samsung phone with a new software version. Once you're done, you can tap right here on Done, and you'll see that those changes have been adjusted. But that's not it with customization, because after the lock screen comes the home screen. And there's a couple really interesting things here on the home screen when it comes to customization. So first of all, as you can see, by default, we get this type of folders that are, well, the classic folders we see on any phone. But if we tap and hold and then tap on Enlarge, we can make those folders bigger. And even better, if we tap and hold again and tap on Settings, we can reduce the opacity of the folder so it looks like tiny apps. And since you can tap on those apps and enter the app directly, you don't have to open the folder. It is kind of identical to having a lot of apps on the home screen. So if you're one of those people that tries to fit as many apps on the home screen as possible, you're going to really like this. Now, another really cool feature on the home screen is that you can stack widgets. So you can essentially have multiple widgets that occupy the same space, and setting this up is really easy. You just have to tap and hold on a widget, then tap on Edit Stack, and then tap here on plus to add another widget, turning the widget into a stack or increasing the stack. So to keep it simple, I'm going to tap here on Battery and add this widget right here, and boom. Now I have 3 widgets on the same space, which is really nice because they do take up quite a bit of space, and it is kind of annoying to have multiple pages of widgets when you could have all of them in the same space. Now, that being said, if you want a little bit more customization, you can always tap and hold right here and then tap on Settings. So you can, for example, increase or decrease the size of apps, although as you can see right here, it is not going to make that big of a difference. It is a very small difference between the 3 options. You can also tap right here and delete the app labels on the home screen, so you can only see the icon, making it cleaner and more professional. But of course, it is a little bit more confusing if you don't know the names of the apps. Also, if you tap on home screen layout, you can select between home app screens or home screen only, which, as you can see, is going to blend your app library and your homepage. So everything is on the same space. And now if you swipe up, you can no longer access the app library. You're going to access this menu right here. So yeah, if you like to have everything in one place, you can do this. Now also here on the home screen settings, you can tap on home screen grid and change it from 4x6 to 5x6. Although, as I said earlier, you also have the big folder option to, well, have even more icons on your page. Then you can also change the app screen grid. In this case, you can see 4 columns or 5 columns if you want smaller icons. And you can also change the folder grid, in this case, of 3x4 or 4x4 if you want more things on your folders. Although that is not going to affect the big folders, which are still going to be 3x3. But anyway, that being said, let's now move on back here to the main settings page to cover one of the most popular and interesting segments in these kinds of videos. I'm going to show you how to improve your battery life and health as much as possible. So let's tap here on battery, then swipe down here to power saving. As you can see, we now have 2 modes, which are maximum and standard. And of course, they both have different types of compromises to give you more battery life. Standard is going to be the more simplistic, little compromises mode, so you can get a little bit more battery life. And then maximum is going to be a very big compromise. It's going to, as you can see, force dark mode on the phone, but it is also the most effective. So ideally, in my opinion, you should always turn it off for most of the time. And when you are really in a rush and you need the most amount of battery life as possible, then you should always turn on maximum because it's going to give you by far the biggest chunk of battery, extra battery on your phone. Then a little bit below, we have battery protection, which in this case also has a basic and maximum option. And in this case, I recommend you permanently turn on basic for your phone because it is once again going to be very little compromises as opposed to maximum, which as you can see forces a maximum battery percentage on the phone. So you can only charge it in this case up to 85%, which is not great. It is a big compromise. In this case, I always recommend basic because it gives you that protection to ensure that the battery is not going to degrade, but there are not going to be any noticeable compromises in the process. Now, to be fair, if you really want to protect your battery, what I recommend you do is you tap on charging settings and disable fast charging and fast wireless charging. These 2 things, although great because they get you from 0 to 100 in, I think, around an hour, they do burn your battery. They make it really, really hot. And of course, that's going to degrade it a lot more than if you charged your phone slowly overnight. I believe the best thing you can do is to disable these 2 options and simply charge the phone at night. This phone has a lot of battery, so you won't really need to charge it throughout the day. And honestly, this is going to be 20 times more effective than any of the battery protection settings you see right here. Trust me. But anyway, that being said, if you really want to save battery life, you actually have to leave the battery settings and tap right here on notifications. If you tap on app notifications, you'll see a full list with all of the apps that can send notifications to your phone. By default, all of these will be turned on, so they will all be connecting to the internet, they will all be updating in the background, and they will all be burning battery life. What I suggest is that you turn most of these off, excluding maybe your phone, your social media, your messaging apps, and things that actually matter, because the most amount of apps you turn off, the more battery life you'll have. So if theoretically you turn off 60-70% of the apps you have on this list, you'll probably see 10 to 20% more battery life, just like that. And even better, you won't be getting annoying notifications from any of these apps. So it's a win-win situation. But anyway, that being said, and back here once again on the main settings page, let's now tap on display because there is a lot of display customization on this phone. As you can see, we get the basic light mode and dark mode we get on most Samsung phones. That of course is a matter of personal preference, but you should know that dark mode does save a little bit of battery life. So if you want as much battery as possible, you should ideally use the dark mode. Then you also have the ability to change brightness manually or automatically with adaptive brightness. And you have extra brightness, which as you can see, it's going to give you a boost, maximizing the brightness on the phone, which is not necessarily useful for your day-to-day life. But if you're outdoors at 12 a.m. on a sunny day, this may be the difference between seeing what's on your phone and not being able to see what's on your phone. Now, a little bit below, we have the privacy display settings, which I have already covered at the beginning of the video. We have motion smoothness, which means you can choose between adaptive at 120 Hertz and standard at 60. In this case, I recommend you try both because adaptive burns more battery life. So if you don't really notice the difference between the two, it is better to use standard. But if you like adaptive, if you appreciate the smoothness of 120 Hertz, then I recommend you turn it on. Now, a little bit below, we have my favorite feature on the display settings, the Eye Comfort Shield, which, as you can see, is going to turn your display into, well, a yellow display. In this case, if you tap on adaptive, it is going to be mild. If you tap on custom, you can tune it up to the max. And although this may seem a little weird, what the phone is doing here is it's deleting the blue lights, which can really help you fall asleep at night. Because when your brain gets hit with blue light, it thinks it's daytime, so it has a harder time falling asleep. It sounds stupid, but it's not. It's science, and this really helps you fall asleep at night if it takes a little bit more time than you would want. Now, a little bit below, you have the screen mode selector between Vivid, which would be the traditional Samsung style of punchy colors, and Natural, which is a more true-to-life color palette, closer to the iPhone, so to say. That, of course, is not going to be as visually appealing, but it is more color accurate. Now, you are probably not a color expert, so you won't really notice that the vivid mode is not as accurate. So once again, this is a matter of personal preference. Then a little bit below, you can choose the screen resolution, which by default is set to Full HD+. But I highly recommend you set it to Quad HD+, because that is the native resolution of the display. It's going to look sharper. And also because you've spent a lot of money on this phone, so it has premium features. This is a premium feature, so I recommend you turn it on to take advantage of your phone. Now, a little bit below, you have the screen timeout settings, which unfortunately only go from 15 seconds up to 10 minutes. There's no unlimited option, so I recommend you tap on 10 minutes to minimize the amount of times your phone automatically turns off. And of course, also here on the display settings, we have the Edge panel, which is this little bar right here that you can actually tap and hold to move across. I'm sorry, there's too many features on this phone. You have this display of apps and options right here that you can use to quickly open certain apps or functionalities like AI Select, which would be circle to search. And that you can also customize right here on panels to display apps, but also you can display people, tasks, you can display widgets like the weather, you can display reminders, so it is a little bit more functional. So as you can see, you can swipe between the different functionalities and make it as complete and useful as possible. And of course, also on the display settings, you have the navigation bar menu, where you can choose between the default buttons to go back, to go home, and to access the multitasking menu, or the new gestures. So you can go back like this, home like this, and access the multitasking menu like that. Now also here on the navigation bar menu, you have the option to enable circle to search, which I hope is turned on by default on your phone. But if you haven't been able to turn it off before, it is right here for some reason on the navigation bar menu. If you want to turn it on or off, you can come here. But anyway, that being said, and back here on the main settings page, if we swipe down to advanced features right here, we will be able to customize the side button functionality, which I like to call the power button, this one on the side, both for a double press or a long press. So let's tap right here on double press. As you can see, we get a bunch of options like opening the camera, turning on the flashlight, or as you can see, opening any app that we have installed on the phone. So you can theoretically tap on Subway Surfers and then double tap to automatically open Subway Surfers. Although I have to say my favorite is still the flashlight. This is really cool when you want to go to the bathroom at 2 in the morning and you need to see what's around you in your house. You can just double tap like this. It turns on the flash and then you can just turn it off. Very easy, very convenient, and you can actually use it in your day-to-day life. And of course, we also have the option to customize a long press, although in this case, it only lets you choose between the Google Assistant, which in this case would be Google Gemini, or the Bixby Assistant. That has actually been improved, although it is not as good as Gemini still. Now, you also get the option to access the power off menu, but that doesn't really make a lot of sense, since you can still access that menu by tapping on volume down and power at the same time. So it makes no sense to do the same thing with 2 different gestures when you can use the second as the Gemini Assistant as a way to summon Google Gemini. Now, that being said, also here on advanced features, you can tap on motions and gestures to access a list of pretty cool functionalities. The first one is lift to wake. So you can quite literally lift your phone to turn it on, just like that. Then you can also access double tap to turn on the screen or double tap to turn it off. So you can, once again, quite literally double tap to turn it off and double tap to turn it on. And you also have the option to swipe your palm to take a screenshot. Although I have never been able to make this feature work. I have had plenty Samsung phones, I've tried it with all of them, and it just never works. I've tried it with my palm close to the phone, far away from the phone, both palms, and it never works. So if any of you has ever made this feature work, please let me know. I would be amazed to see this working in action. Now, also here on advanced features, if you tap on multi-window, you have the option to turn on swiping to split screen and swiping for pop-up view. So if you tap on swipe to split screen, you can essentially do a 2-finger swipe up from the bottom to quickly access the split screen mode, which is really useful. So let's select the calculator so I can show you the demo. You can of course adjust the size for each one of these apps, and if you want to go back to the settings page or the previous app, you can always swipe all the way to the bottom and go back to normal. And then you have swipe for pop-up view, which essentially lets you select from the top right of the phone, like this, to create a window version of that app. In this case, the phone is pretty big, so this can actually be useful if you want to be doing 2 things at the same time. Now, you can always resize, I'm not sure if it's on the top, there we go. From the top, you can resize that window, and you can tap right here on expand to take the app back to full screen. Now, something really cool you should know about the split screen mode is that if you turn it on, of course, you can see the 2 apps at the same time, but if you tap on the 3 dots right here, and then tap on the star, and then tap on home screen, you can actually create a multitasking pair of apps that you can always access even if it's deleted from the multitasking menu. So if you're always using 2 apps at the same time, you can either access one of those apps, like the settings page, as a full screen app, or you can tap right here to access that app in combination with another at the same time. And this is a great way to, create that multi-app menu without having to do it manually all the time. But anyway, that being said, let's now get back here once again to the main settings page and swipe down to security and privacy. The first thing I want you to do is to tap right here on app security then tap on app protection and turn it on, because I think by default it's not going to be turned on for some reason, because it's pretty useful. But once it's turned on, you can always scan the phone, and it is essentially going to run through all of your apps to see if anything is causing issues or there's any virus in some of your apps. Then also here on security and privacy, if you tap on more security settings, you can tap right here on secure Wi-Fi to essentially enable a VPN on your phone. So if you tap on protect, it is going to turn on that VPN, so you can now browse the web safely, knowing that, well, no one is going to get any data off of your phone. Now, this is particularly useful if you're using a public Wi-Fi off of an airport or a restaurant, and you don't know who's also using that network. There could be a hacker, there could be someone fetching data or trying to steal things. So if you're at an unknown place, you can turn this on and safely browse the web. And well, more in the same vein, if you come back here to the main settings page, then tap on connections, then tap on Wi-Fi, and tap on the three dots right here at the top right, you'll be able to access intelligent Wi-Fi. Now, in this menu, you'll see that the last icon is intelligent Wi-Fi, but if you tap on it, I think it's 8 times, you will enable this secret menu called Connectivity Labs, which I'm not really sure why this is hidden, because it has a bunch of very useful features. So if you swipe down right here, you first of all will be able to do a thing called Home Wi-Fi Inspection, which essentially is going to be sort of a scan of your Wi-Fi at home to see which places in your house have a better Wi-Fi connection. So let's tap on Start, then select our Wi-Fi, tap on Next, then tap Next, Start. And as you can see, this is now scanning my Wi-Fi where I am right now. But if I start moving the phone across my house, this is both going to show the speed I get and the stability of the connection I get. As you can see, this is the threshold for a weak signal. So you can see which areas in your house have a better Wi-Fi connection. This can be pretty useful if you want to set up a video conference or download something and you want to find the place in your house that has the best Wi-Fi. And well, also here on Connectivity Labs, you ideally want to turn off Wi-Fi 7 mode, unless you have a Wi-Fi 7 router and you actually use Wi-Fi 7 speeds on your phone, which is very unlikely because it's going to burn more battery life. And also, if you swipe all the way down and tap right here on Customize Wi-Fi List Settings, you'll be able to turn on Show Band Information, which, if you come all the way back to your Wi-Fi connection, is going to let you see either the 5 GHz band or 2.4 GHz band you are connected to. This may seem stupid, but it's actually a pretty easy way to see if you have a good connection or not. If it says 5 GHz, it means that you have a good connection. If it says 2.4, it means you don't have a good connection where you are. Now, that being said, something really cool I found out recently is that if you swipe down on your control center and start a video capture, tapping here on screen recorder, you can actually select between a full screen recording or a partial screen recording. So if you tap on start, you'll actually be able to set up the area of your display that you are capturing so you can capture a specific video off of TikTok or IG without capturing the entirety of your phone. But anyway, that being said, and once again here on the main settings page, let's now swipe down and access security and privacy once again, then tap on lost device protection, then tap right here on theft protection, then failed authentication lock, which we have to turn on. And that's it. That's all you have to do. Now your phone is protected against theft. Because once this is turned on, your phone is automatically going to block itself once it identifies someone is trying different passwords to get into your phone. This may seem stupid, but I always recommend you turn this on just in case, because it could be the difference between someone getting into your phone and someone not getting into your phone. But anyway, that being said, and once again back here on the main settings page, if you tap on notifications and then you tap on notification pop-up style, you'll be able to select between brief and detailed, which is the way that your notifications show up. Brief is the one that you get by default, and it's a little bar right here that shows up at the top. And then detailed is a bigger pop-up that lets you respond directly off of the notification. It lets you deny it. It gives you more options and more information. And well, also here on the notification settings, if you tap on status bar, you'll be able to choose the way your phone displays notifications, both with icons or with a little dot right here. And even you can just tap on nothing and there will be nothing at the top. So if you don't want to know you've gotten notifications, you can tap right here. Now, something very strange is that also on the status bar settings, you have this option called show battery background, which lets you see either just the percentage of battery you have or the battery icon with sort of like a visual resemblance of the amount of battery you have on the phone. I think by default you get this one, the percentage. If you want to also have the battery icon, you can come right here and turn this on. But anyway, that being said, let's now come back here to the home screen on the phone because I'm going to show you some really cool phone features. At the end of the day, this phone is a phone, so it's really nice to see that there's actual phone-related features on it. Let's tap here on the phone app, then tap on the three dots at the top right, and then tap on settings. The first feature I want to show you is call screening, which is essentially going to use AI to automatically answer your phone calls, only the ones that come from an unknown number. And you'll have your personal AI answer the call, try to understand what that person wants, and if it deems the call fair, like it's not a scam call or something weird, it is going to pass that conversation to you so you can keep talking to that person or that number. Now, another pretty cool feature is text call, which essentially lets you text whatever you want to say, and then the phone is going to turn that into audio so the other person can receive it. I think this is more of an accessibility feature for people that have issues with speaking out loud or speaking at all. But if you don't want to make any effort, or if it's a boring call or something like that, and you don't really want to waste energy speaking, you can, I guess, just text your way through the phone call. Then, of course, you have Live Translate, which is really cool. It essentially lets you automatically translate what the other person is saying to your language and vice versa. So as you can see, by default, I'm set up to English and the other person to Spanish. So if I speak to a Spanish person, I will hear English and they will hear Spanish, so we can communicate better. Now, that being said, these are not the only two options. If I tap on language, I can select between a range of different languages for me, so the language that the phone is trying to translate from. And then if I tap here on the other person's language, I can also select a range of languages to be translated to my language. And also, this is not as interesting, but if you tap on call background, you can actually tap here on background and select between one of these three cool background videos, in this case, or photos for your calls, or of course, any photo you have on your gallery. But anyway, that being said, let's now tap here on the camera app because there is a really cool camera feature on the S26 Ultra. If you tap right here on this icon and tap on this one right here, which is the super steady mode, it is essentially going to keep a steady horizon on your videos, so no matter how much you move or shake, the video will always be completely vertical. So let's tap on record. I'm just going to tilt my phone like this and like that and like this again. There we go. And you'll see now when I finish my recording and I come to the gallery that it doesn't feel like I was shaking the phone. As you can see, I mean, you can see some movement, but you don't see the tilting movement that I did. This is incredible. It's really cool, especially if you're running or doing something with a lot of shaking going on, so you can make sure that the horizon is always completely steady. Now, that being said, something that is probably a bit more interesting to most of you watching this video is how to tweak the settings on the phone, coming right here to the settings menu, to get the best photos and videos possible on this phone. In this case, the first thing you have to do is to turn on shot suggestions, which is going to use AI to guide you to get the best possible shot composition and take a better photo. Then you want to tap on Photo Enhancer and tap on Prioritize Quality. This is a big deal. Of course, you can always get more speed by tapping on Balanced or Prioritize Speed, but the phone is not really going to be slow when you tap on Quality. So in my opinion, it is always better to wait like 0.2 seconds more for the photo and get a better looking photo. And well, also here on the Photo Enhancer settings, you can enable the screen detection, which is automatically going to adjust the color and contrast of your photos to match the scene. If you don't plan to edit the colors of your photos after you've taken them, I recommend you turn this on because it's going to make them look more professional, more tailored to the environment, so to say. Then a little bit below, if you tap on Photo Format, you can choose between normal photos or high efficiency photos. And in this case, I always recommend you disable the high efficiency pictures because they are going to take a little bit less space. They are more efficient, like the name suggests, but they are also less quality. They have a more aggressive compression, and therefore you cannot really move them around as much with filters, and they just have a slightly less sharp finish because of the extra compression. Then a little bit below, you can tap on Motion Photos to select what you want to record. As some of you know, you can enable motion photos by tapping on this icon right here. So you can essentially take a normal photo like this, and of course view it as a normal photo. But if you tap right here, you can also play it as a little video, which is a great way to see a little bit more out of that moment instead of just a still frame. You can hear the audio, you can see things in movement, and it's an overall better way to capture a moment. Now, a little bit below, we have video format, which in this case, once again, I always recommend you tap on most compatible. It is going to give you a better visual quality. Although everything said, if you really want to use high efficiency video, ideally you want to tap on high bitrate videos. So the bitrate is higher and the quality of the video is also better. Now, what I never recommend you turn on is HDR. It is theoretically going to give you more dynamic range, which is better, but it is fake dynamic range. So it's going to make the videos look fake and unnatural. So yeah, I always recommend you turn it off. And well, you can also turn on log, which is this flat video profile that lets you capture all the information to then better edit that video in post-production. But this is for people who already knew what log was. If you don't know what it is, don't use it. It is for professionals. Then a little bit below, we have auto FPS, which I also recommend you turn off. I think it never looks good to have a dancing amount of FPS on your videos. It makes it look cheap. Then a little bit below, you have the option to enable the video stabilization, and I recommend you do. It looks really good. It's better than turning it off. And this is a big deal if you plan on editing your video or sending it to a computer or something like that. You should tap on audio options and disable 360 audio recording. This is one of those party tricks from new phones that lets you capture 360 audio. It's more evolving or involved, whatever, but it's a weird format for the audio, and it's not going to work well with your PC or your Mac when you try to edit it or send it to your TV. So yeah, if you want normal audio that works in other devices, turn this off and just capture normal audio. Now, what I do recommend you turn on is the zoom in mic. This essentially is going to focus the audio capturing into the specific area you're recording. So if you zoom in on something, on a tree, the audio capture is going to focus on what's happening in that tree. Maybe there's a bird, maybe there's a squirrel. Well, you are going to capture the sounds of those animals instead of everything else around you. That being said, I also recommend you turn on Save to External Storage. I recommend you turn on Tracking Autofocus. And of course, I recommend you turn on both the grid lines and the level. In this case, the grid lines are going to separate your frame in 9 different squares, so you can better compose your shots. And the level is going to, well, be a level, so you can level your shot so it's perfectly horizontal or perfectly vertical. And well, a little bit below, we have the famous settings to keep. This is essentially a list of all the settings you want to permanently lock the way you set them up. because by default, these are going to be turned off, and the camera app is always going to default back to normal, which is the camera mode using the main camera on the back. If you turn all of these options on, the settings you change on the camera are going to stay put. So if you select video recording with the selfie camera at 4K 30 FPS, every time you come back to the camera, you'll see video recording with the selfie camera at 4K 30 FPS, which is pretty helpful. As you can see, you can select the camera mode, the selfie angle, the filters, the portrait zoom, the exposure, everything that you can change on the camera, you can essentially force to stay put even if you close the camera app. And well, a little bit below, you can tap on Camera Assistant to do some final tweaks to your photos and videos. First of all, ideally you want to disable Auto HDR, then you want to enable distortion correction. This is a big deal. Then you want to tap on Advanced Resolution Options and enable Upscale Digital Zoom. Some people are skeptical of digital upscaling of images because they think it's going to look fake, but I've tried it with and without the upscaling, and it actually looks pretty good. It is a soft but realistic upscaling done with AI. Now, a little bit below, I recommend you disable Quick Tap Shutter. I recommend you enable Prioritize Focus over Speed, which is once again going to give you better looking photos. And well, finally for the camera app, if you swipe here to the More tab and then tap on Slow Motion Video, there we go, you'll see that you can capture either full HD video at 240 FPS or UHD video, which is 4K, at 120 Hz. Now, something a lot of people don't know is that if you start a slow motion recording, of course, by default, it is going to capture whatever you set it to capture, in this case 4K at 120 Hz. But if you come to the gallery and select that slow-mo video, you can actually tap and hold to make it work even slower using AI. And it is pretty incredible because this is like, 960 FPS at 4K, giving you very sharp, very slow-mo video. Now, of course, you can do this by tapping and holding, but if you tap here on Edit, and then tap right here on this icon, you can actually change the speed of the video so it always stays that way. In this case, you can select a half, a fourth, an eighth, or a 16th of the original speed, so you can attain this super slow-mo capture by default on that video. So you don't have to be tapping on it, and so you can just export the video to your computer and it stays super slow-mo, although as you can see it is going to take some time because this is all done using AI. But anyway, that being said, I think that's everything that I have for this phone. I think I've covered every single feature that I know for this phone. So yeah, if you have any questions regarding anything that I said, please tell me down below. And if not, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope to see you again very soon. Peace.